Okay, good morning, class. Today we have Q&A. And so some words that we have on your tests only. Remember to access the speed building so that you get warmed up. You have Chief DUI, Officer Gill, Mayor Stone, and Chief Tate. And this is going to be your 240 Q&A. And it does start, I believe, in the middle, okay? 240 for 5 minutes. I don't have a mic. I know Kat recorded yesterday, maybe. Oh, it's back there. Oh. And then let me just get this. I don't know where my. Is that number 2?
It's number 2. Is this yours? And
well, that's okay.
Number
I'll
3.
use number 3. Or number 1 doesn't work. That's okay. We'll do it.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, thank you, Michelle.
It's over here.
Okay, sorry, you. So use this for speed building as well, okay, you all? Okay, here we go. Then this is 240
the
Q&A.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chief Tate, Mayor Stone, Officer Gill, DUI, and Chief. 240 for 5 minutes, you all. Use it for speed building. Is there any bad blood between you and the chief?
No.
Have you ever expressed to anyone any criticism of the chief?
I don't think so.
I'm asking you if you have ever made any comments to any of your fellow officers critical of the chief.
I may have.
Do you recall what those were or when they were made?
No.
Have you ever heard anyone in the department make comments critical of the chief?
Probably most of them.
Anything that sticks out in your mind as being anything significant?
Maybe some of the unfair corrective action, which they felt was unfair.
When you are talking about corrective action, are you talking about reassignments?
The inconsistency.
Inconsistency in disciplinary action?
Yes.
When were these comments made and by whom?
It has been a lot of years that these things have occurred, with every officer commenting.
Anything that you can recall that has occurred of any significance?
Probably the most significant would be one officer that was relieved of duty and fired. A lot of people were critical then.
Okay. Do you recall when that occurred?
Probably 3 or 4 years ago.
The circumstances surrounding that?
It was an officer that was relieved from duty and let go from employment for lying to another police department on a DUI accident he was involved in.
And do you know if the chief has taken any disciplinary action or any type of corrective action involving Officer Gill?
Yes.
Do you recall when that was?
Within the last month.
How did that come to your attention?
The corrective action?
Yes, sir.
I am the one that initiated it.
How does a procedure like that get initiated within your department?
Of corrective action?
Yes.
Anytime a member of the department sees something that an officer has done that may be against policies, procedure, or city rules and regulations, they have an obligation to bring that to the attention of their supervisor.
You were the one who initiated this corrective action against Officer Gill?
Yes.
Was that initiated within the last month?
The action was taken within the last month.
Then that goes through what process within your department?
Since I'm the one that initiated it, it was assigned to another person to look into the violation and make the recommendations to the chief.
Who looked into the violation or the alleged violation concerning Officer Gill?
A sergeant from the detective division.
Did he prepare a written report?
Yes, sir.
Then he submitted that to the chief?
Yes.
Did you give the chief any input on what would happen in this situation?
No.
Corrective action was taken?
Yes.
Did you agree with the chief with what he did?
Yes.
Do you know who the chief reports to?
City council.
Now, when you had this meeting or discussion with Officer Gill, did you use the word fix?
Yes.
What does that word mean to you?
On a ticket, it means to have it dismissed improperly.
Improperly or illegally?
Improperly.
Is there any distinction in your mind between something that is improper and something that is illegal?
I don't know. What may be improper may not be illegal.
Have you ever talked to the defendant in this case?
This is the first day I have ever met him.
Have you ever talked directly with Mayor Stone?
Yes.
Would those be the types of meetings we have discussed?
Either that or maybe a complaint that she had received and wanted to talk to me about.
Did Mayor Stone's name come up during this conversation with Officer Gill?
Yes.
What was said?
She had mentioned to Officer Gill, who told me that her car was down there and that the summons was not placed on her car. Then Officer Gill said her vehicle was not down there.
So you were under the impression that these 2 tickets had not been issued to Mayor Stone, correct?
Correct, yes.
To some other people who were perhaps there with her?
I don't know if they were with her because Officer Gill said he did not see her there.
Did you think that the chief was doing anything illegal?
I would have to say yes.
How so?
in that the law states that there is a certain way that those have to be handled.
Which is filling out the amendment form.
Yes, which says the cancellation of summons and complaint in any manner other than by the process of law.
The process of law in your mind was up to the city attorney?
To have that summons presented to the city attorney based upon what the true facts were.
Do you have any reason to believe that it wasn't true, that these were people that were out there on city business?
I have no idea if they were or not.
Did you, in your later meeting with the chief, tell him that you thought that this was improper?
No,
Why not?
it's not my place to tell him.
Was it something that you felt strongly about?
No,
You just didn't feel strongly about it one way or the other.
no,
Did you have any information as to how these tickets were paid or who paid them?
no, I don't.
Do you have any reason to doubt Chief Tate's integrity or truthfulness?
No,
Do you know of any illegality he has ever been involved with?
no,
What about Officer Gill?
no.
No illegal acts of any improper conduct on his part?
Well, other than the conduct that we recently had,
Is that the only incident you know of involving Officer Gill?
I believe that's the only type of corrective action taken against Officer Gill to my knowledge.
Did that in any way involve truthfulness on his part?
Well, yes and no.
How, yes and no?
He was truthful, but he didn't write it truthfully.
So would it be fair to say that at one point he said something happened a certain way and then later told the truth?
Yes, that's fair.
During this incident with Officer Gill, did it come to your attention or the department's attention that at some point he had not told the truth?
Yes,
Was that the reason for the corrective action?
yes,
Have you talked to Officer Gill about a deposition that he gave in this case?
yes. When he got his copy, he wanted me to read it, and I wouldn't read it. He said my name had been brought up in it.
Did he tell you what questions he had been asked?
He had informed me that he had been asked about these tickets, and somehow he brought my name up. And the question at that point was who was the crooks, either him or me or the chief.
Did you say who was the crooks?
Yes, who were the crooks? Me, him, or the chief? That's when he requested to get an attorney.
You had this one conversation with him after he had been deposed, correct?
Yes,
And then you said there were some questions as to who were the crooks, him, me, or the chief. He or me meaning you.
me meaning me.
Any other names mentioned as being the crooks? And we'll get ready for your 225, number one. Proper names, you have Miss Rich, Gary Criswell, Mr. and Mrs. Gorp, Bev Farr, Mrs. Farr, and Bevs. And this is going to be test number 225 for test number 1 for 5 minutes, you all. And it starts in the beginning. Miss Rich, my name is Gary Criswell. I just met you this morning. I represent Mr. and Mrs. Gorp, who are the defendants in this action. Have you ever had your deposition taken before?
No,
If I ask you a question and you're not sure what I'm trying to get at, or if you don't hear me, just ask me to repeat it or rephrase it, and I'll be happy to do that, all right?
okay,
It would be very helpful to our nice court reporter if when you respond, you do it audibly as contrasted to nodding your head, because sometimes she's not too sure as to what type of nod you might be giving, all right?
okay.
If you could, Miss Rich, just give me a little bit of your background. How long have you lived here?
I moved here with my parents in 1987 and have been here most of the time since.
You're how old at this time?
29,
How are you employed?
I'm self-employed.
In what kind of an area? What do you do?
I do psychic readings.
And that involves what? Just generally?
Well, that involves reading tarot cards, doing what's called psychometry, which is like holding onto jewelry and doing readings. It's a private appointment type of thing, and I also teach classes in how to perform these functions.
Okay, and if I understand it, you're a friend of Bev Farr, who is the plaintiff in this case. Is that correct?
Yes,
Does she live near where you live?
yes,
Like within a block or something?
yes,
Is this a social relationship?
yes, it is.
Is she a client of yours too?
No, she's a friend.
Now, as I understand it, you may have been with Mrs. Farr on October 26, 1999, which is the day that an accident was supposed to have occurred.
Yes.
All right, when did you first come in contact with Mrs. Farr on that day then? When did you get together?
We got together earlier that morning. I feel the time was about approximately 10. I'm not sure about that.
Did she call you or did you just happen to be over there?
Well, she called me, and we sat and visited for about 15 minutes, and then we left.
Now, did you drive from your residence over to her residence?
Yes,
And so if you started chatting about 10, then you left about 10:15.
approximately.
And where did you go from there?
We went straight to her mother's home.
Had you been together prior to that on this particular day?
No,
Was there a particular reason why she was going to see her mother?
she was going to visit with her, and I think she was going to get a loan from her, but I don't know if that occurred or not.
When I took Mrs. Farr's deposition earlier, there was some indication that she was going to borrow $50 from her. Do you recall that?
I recall her saying something about that.
What is her mother's name?
I don't know.
Had you ever met her before?
I had met her briefly. I'd never really had an opportunity to speak with her.
When you left the Farr's residence, did you go out the front door or the back door?
I believe it was the back door.
Anything unusual happen?
No, got in the car and left.
No. She had her grandniece with her, is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's the relationship.
Where was the niece sitting, if you recall?
She was sitting on Bev's lap.
Did you drive directly to where her mother was staying?
Yes.
Did you stop anywhere on the way?
No.
When you arrived then at where her mother was staying, where did you park?
I parked on, I guess you'd say, the driver's side, the left side of the driveway.
I've been out at the Gork residence, and if I recall, it's a double garage. Now, then, are you telling me you parked on the left side of the driveway?
Yes. So that when I pulled in, I was on the driver's side. So the room was on the right.
So it would be on the left-hand side of a kind of double-type driveway leading up to the garage, right?
Yes, right.
What occurred then?
Bev was just going to run in and talk to her mother, and I was going to stay in the car. And so she got out of the car and she grabbed the baby. I wasn't paying any strict attention then. I was just kind of staring off. Then all of a sudden I realized she hadn't come around the front of the car. So I looked for her and she had fallen down over on the other side.
Now, are you surmising that she fell, or did you see her fall?
I'm surmising that she fell. I didn't see her fall.
Were you going to go into the house?
No.
Was Mrs. Farr just going to go in quickly and then come right back?
Yes.
Was that the idea?
Yes.
Then where were you going to take her after that?
We were going to run to the bank after that.
When you didn't see Mrs. Farr, then what did you do?
I got out of the car and went around to the back. I saw her on the ground. I went to see if she was injured.
Now, did you see her after you'd gone around the back of the car, or just where was she when you observed her?
She was down on the ground. There's gravel, and then the cement starts, and kind of a real slight incline, like as if you're going into the garage. It was right there where the cement and the gravel divides. She was kind of half on each.
And was she sitting on the ground or laying down, or do you recall?
She was mostly sitting on the ground on her right hip. She was leaning pretty far over, but she wasn't prone on the ground.
Was she on the gravel, or was she on the, what I'll refer to as a cement apron?
She was on both. Her legs were down in the gravel. Her seat was up on the cement.
If you could help me in that regard, what portion of her body was on the cement? In other words, was that where her hips were, or further up the torso, or lower down?
Approximately, I would say about knee level up was on the cement.
So then from her knees down were on the gravel.
Right. She was.
Okay. And so we'll have your second 225 Q&A, proper names. Mrs. Farr, it continues, Bev's, Dr. Arms's, and Gork. This will be your second 225 Q&A for 5 minutes, and it starts in the middle. Did you observe anything which seemed unusual to you?
She was in a great deal of pain. I asked her if she was okay, and she wasn't able to answer me.
Did you observe any gravel on the cement?
Yes, there was gravel on the cement.
How much?
Just a scattering of the rocks. It wasn't like the gravel continued onto the cement, but it was just like the rocks were scattered up onto the cement.
Okay, do you know of your own knowledge as to whether Mrs. Farr stumbled in the gravel?
I didn't see it. She told me that that's what she had done, but I did not see it.
Now, you said that she told you something. When did she tell you something?
At the time when we were picking her up, she said she had fallen on the gravel.
And did she mean the gravel in the driveway?
Yes.
As contrasted with the gravel on the cement?
She mentioned that it was the cement, that the rocks were on the cement, that she was just walking through and just slipped and fell.
But you know that it was on the cement or on the gravel?
It was my understanding that it was on the cement.
Did she say why she fell? I mean, did she say anything about looking where she was going or anything?
No, she didn't. It was like 1 minute she was up, the next minute she was down, kind of thing.
Now, if we assume that there was some gravel on this cement apron, could you tell me how much? Are we talking about a few pebbles, or are we talking about a pile, or what did you observe?
It wasn't a pile. If I were to look in that area that she fell in, I would probably guess about maybe 150 little pieces of stone there. So it was what I would call a scattering. It wasn't like a whole lot. I mean, it wasn't that there was none, but it wasn't a lot either as far as a pile.
When Mrs. Farr got out of the car and was going to run into the house, did she say she'd be right back or anything like that?
She asked me if I wanted to come in, and I told her no, I would wait for her. So then she said, okay, I'll be right back.
So she was just going to pop in and pop right back out.
Yes.
Was she hurrying as she went towards the front of the car?
No.
Where was the niece at this time?
She was holding her.
Did Mrs. Farr get the money that she had come over there to pick up?
I don't remember.
Did she go on into the house?
Yes, I had to help her.
So then you helped her into the house. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And you just don't recall whether or not she got the money, which is why she was going over there.
I can't. I just don't recall.
Did you go to the bank then after that?
I don't remember.
Where did you go?
We had to take the baby home, and then we took her back to Bev's house where we met her mother. And she just handed the baby to her through the window. After that, we went to the hospital.
Where did you take the baby then? Where was it?
To Bev's home.
Oh, okay, at her home.
Yes,
And where did you drive then after that from home?
to the hospital.
Did you stop anywhere?
We stopped at Dr. Arms's office. That's her usual doctor. And his office was closed, so we went straight to the hospital.
You meant to go to Dr. Arms. He wasn't there, so then you drove on up to the hospital. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you remember who you saw at the hospital?
I don't remember the doctor's name. I know I've seen him there before, but I don't remember his name.
Was it at the emergency room?
Yes.
Now, shifting back to the Gorp home, how would you describe the physical appearance of their house from the outside?
It's a very attractive home.
Is it well maintained and tidy?
Yes.
Is there any appreciable difference between the level of the gravel driveway and the cement apron?
I don't understand what you mean.
Is the cement apron higher than the gravel, if you recall?
Well, the gravel meets the cement, and then the cement has a slight incline into the garage.
By slight, what are you referring to?
I don't really know how to describe it.
Well, not steep.
I don't feel it's steep. It kind of goes up at an angle from the level of the gravel on the driveway. It's a little dip that goes up.
If you were to hold a pen at an angle, could you show me about what you recall?
Probably about like this,
Okay,
as the pen shakes.
all right. I don't know what that would be, but it would be a couple of degrees. Is that fair?
It looks like maybe about 10 or 15.
You think it's 10 or 15 degrees?
Yes, I would say approximately.
Now, what I was trying to get at with my other question was whether or not there was any appreciable difference between the level of the gravel and the cement. In other words, was there a lip?
Not that I observed. The gravel came right up to the cement, and then there was just a scattering of the stones onto the cement. The closer you got to the garage, the more cement there was.
If we assume that there was some gravel on the cement, would there be any reason why Mrs. Farr couldn't see that? I mean, is there any obstruction to view as she would proceed up that direction?
No.
When I took Mrs. Farr's deposition earlier, I asked her about her driving, and she says she just never had a license, and that the reason for this was that she didn't want to drink and drive.
That's right.
If you've been around her a bit, and it sounds like you have, does that sound right?
She has never expressed that to me. What she's expressed to me is that it made her nervous driving in town, and she would just rather not have to go through it.
Have you had occasion to visit her in the last few months?
Often,
Meaning you still go over quite a bit.
yes.
How is she doing?
As far as her ankles,
Yes. Okay, you all, so that concludes your Q&A test. See how you're doing. Type them up. Have a great day, you all.